It's 2 decades later, and the story of Billy Bob Thornton and Angelina Jolie feels unfinished. The noise and recklessness of their marriage bore the indelible signs of unforgettable tumult, while the silence after their breakup perpetuated a mystery none could quite explain. Billy dodged questions for years, hiding behind his jokes about staying in hotels after each divorce. Time changes people, and recently he finally opened up about the truth he had spent years running from. What he revealed showed a side of their marriage the public never saw. Before Angelina Jolie came into his life, Billy Bob Thornton had already been shaped by a long history of broken relationships and emotional instability. At the time they both met on the sets of Pushing Tin in 1999, he had been married 4 times, and each marriage left behind its scars. His first wife was Melissa Lee Gatlin, who married him in 1978 when he was still some unknown wannabe artist in Hollywood. They had a daughter, Amanda, but within 2 years, the marriage fell apart. Much later, Billy would acknowledge that he wasn't a very good partner in those days. Smothered by insecurity, infidelity, and career struggles, he had grown distant, and Amanda had grown up estranged from him. That scar stayed with him for years. After Melissa came actress Toni Lawrence, but that marriage also lasted barely 2 years. Billy's career had no stability, and he spent most of his time hustling for work, writing late into the night, and taking whatever small roles he could find. Love simply didn't have room to grow in the chaos. Then came Cinda Williams, his co-star from One False Move. Their relationship was built on creative chemistry, but they both later admitted they were never meant to be married. They divorced in 1992. His 4th marriage, to former Playboy model Pietra Dawn Cherniak, was the most turbulent. They married in 1993, had 2 sons, and looked stable from the outside. But by 1997 it ended in a bitter divorce filled with allegations of emotional and physical mistreatment, which Billy denied. Regardless, the damage to his reputation and to the family was already done. By the late 90s, Billy was a man who feared he wasn't built for marriage. His relationships always burned fast and painfully, and he would more often than not joke about hiding at the Sunset Marquis Hotel after every divorce. Wrapped up within all the humor was a guilty, insecure man who thought love kept slipping right through his fingers. Then along came Angelina Jolie. When Angelina walked onto the set of Pushing Tin, Billy was 44, already weathered by life, and engaged to actress Laura Dern. Angelina was 24, bold, emotionally intense, and rising fast in Hollywood. No one expected them to connect, but the chemistry between them was instant. People on set described an electric shift whenever they were together. But there was one problem. Billy was not single. Laura Dern was away filming when the relationship between Billy and Angelina deepened. What happened next became one of Hollywood's coldest breakup stories. Billy, without warning, married Angelina in Las Vegas in May 2000. Later, Laura Dern declared that she knew about it the same way as everybody else did, from the news. She says she went to work on a movie, and then her boyfriend got married while she was gone. Billy never called her again. It was harsh and sudden, and it cast a shadow over his new marriage from its very beginning. Once Billy and Angelina were together, they were inseparable. They praised each other constantly, stayed by each other's side, and behaved like the world outside simply didn't exist. Their love was intense, obsessive, overwhelming. But in private, tension mounted between who they were and how they lived, the parts of themselves they never resolved. The world focused on them the moment they married. Their public displays of affection were constant and dramatic, rendering them tabloid gold. The most infamous rumor centered around a very simple gesture: necklaces containing tiny drops of each other's blood. It was no more than a small fingertip prick placed inside a locket, but the media morphed it into a bizarre horror story of vials of blood dangling from their necks. Billy would later say they were shocked by how fast a private symbol turned into a cultural punchline. The fact that they were 20 years apart only put them further under the limelight. Angelina was passionate and unpredictable, while Billy was worn out by life, suffering from anxiety. Emotionally, they made sense, but their personalities were increasingly rubbing each other the wrong way. And of course, the ghost of Laura Dern's sudden heartbreak trailed them everywhere, fueling even more controversy. By 2002, the fissures in their relationship were no longer whispers. Angelina's life was exploding with success. She became one of Hollywood's most talked-about stars, won an Oscar, took on major roles, and began humanitarian work overseas. Her world was expanding at a rapid rate. Billy was withdrawing. He described himself as agoraphobic, someone overwhelmed by crowds and constant attention. While Angelina was thriving on global missions and the red carpet, Billy felt pulled into a lifestyle that did not suit him. Then came the turning point, the adoption, in March 2002, of her first child, Maddox. By then, she was emotionally ready to be a mother. Billy supported the process and traveled with her to Cambodia. But when they returned home, something was different. It was moving too quickly for him, Angelina surmises, as he was already chafing at their disparate lifestyles. As Angelina settled into motherhood, Billy retreated into his music, his writing, and the silence of staying home. He started to feel insecure around her fame and poise. In fact, he told her he didn't feel good enough for her. By the end of 2002, the couple seldom appeared together. The once blazing fire was just dwindling under the weight of lifestyle differences, emotional gaps, and insecurities neither of them knew how to close. Their breakup wasn't in a public argument or in some sort of explosion. Rather, their marriage dissolved the way it began, fast, quiet, and out of nowhere. By the time their divorce was finalized in May 2003, the world still wasn't sure what happened. But the truth was sadder than the rumors, actually. They loved each other very much, but they were just made for different lives. For nearly 2 decades, observers speculated about why Bob Thornton and Angelina Jolie fell apart so quickly. Some cited the difference in their ages. Others mentioned their whirlwind romance or the scandals that made them tabloid darlings. But when Billy finally spoke candidly, the reason was far simpler. "We just had different lifestyles," he said. Those 5 words explained all. Angelina lived a life that moved outward into the world. Even in her 20s, she was traveling to conflict zones, adopting children, and building a global humanitarian presence. She lived on motion, change, and emotional intensity. Billy was shaped by trauma, failed marriages, and lifelong anxiety. He found comfort in stillness, routine, and privacy. Fame drained him. Big crowds overwhelmed him. And the public life Angelina embraced made him want to retreat. He often joked about hiding at the Sunset Marquis Hotel after every divorce. But behind the joke was a man who struggled to breathe in the world she lived in. Angelina needed a partner who could stand beside her in the spotlight. Billy needed someone who could sit with him in the quiet. No matter how much they cared for each other, those needs were not compatible. There was no scandal behind their split, no betrayal, no explosive fight. They simply grew in opposite directions. Billy later insisted the love itself had been real. "I look at that time as a great time," he said. He still called Angelina a wonderful person and defended her against the exaggerated rumors that surrounded their marriage. Even the infamous blood necklaces, he explained, were nothing more than tiny lockets with a drop of blood, not the bizarre vials the media sensationalized. The tragedy, in the end, wasn't what happened between them. It was what might have been possible if they had met at another time in their lives when they were more prepared for each other. After their divorce in 2003, Billy retreated away from the limelight for a little while. He didn't disappear dramatically. He simply slipped back into the quiet, the way he always did whenever life became too loud. As the world continued to follow Angelina's growing fame and expanding family, Billy chose a different path. He returned to music, playing with his band, the Boxmasters, and finding peace in songwriting. Acting remained part of his life, but he gravitated toward roles that didn't require constant public attention. No longer was he chasing the spotlight. He'd already paid the emotional price of living inside it. It wasn't long after his marriage to Angelina ended that Billy met Connie Angland, a down-to-earth, private woman who worked behind the scenes in film. She wasn't a celebrity. She never tried to be. Her world was tranquil and steady, everything Billy needed after years of chaos. With her, he didn't have to perform or match someone else's pace. He could simply be himself. They spent more than a decade together before marrying in 2014. They have a daughter, Bella, and built a quiet, private life that suits him to a T. "She's my speed," he said, a simple phrase that spoke volumes about what he'd been searching for all these years. Meanwhile, Angelina moved into a completely different chapter in life, continued humanitarian work, directed films, and raised 6 children. Their lives diverged so sharply it was clear their marriage, from a very realistic point of view, never really had a chance. They weren't living for the same life, but that didn't make what they shared any less meaningful. Even after all these years, Billy talks about their time together with warmth instead of regret. Time softened the memories, leaving just the truth. The love was real, the moments good, but the ending necessary. It wasn't until 2 decades later, in fact, that the truth of their breakup would reveal itself, and it's decidedly more human than any tabloid version. Sometimes, love just isn't enough when 2 people are destined for different worlds. Now, the question is yours. Do you think Billy Bob Thornton and Angelina Jolie could have lasted if they had met at a different time in their lives?